All right, grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and the repentant alike. I am Chief Sophia of the Americana Band of Indians, and this is our part 2 of our Feast for Abundance. Now we're going to go into the New Testament. The Old Testament part, we talked about Jubilee cycles and how it works. Now we're going to talk about how Jesus amended the Jubilee contract. So the first story we're going to start with is the prodigal son, and that is Luke 15, verse 11. So I'm going to read this from my Orthodox Study Bible, which reads differently than your King James Version, okay? And it has some notes. The prodigal son. Then he said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. So he divided them his livelihood. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed the swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, but no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion. And he ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet, and bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this is my son, was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, Your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I have never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, you killed the fatted calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It was right that we should make merry and be glad. For your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. This is talking about Jesus. Jesus left the Creator, his father, his mother's house, and came down here and was messing around with us. Now, we're going to get into this because he talks about the sinners and all that stuff. But just understand, this party that was thrown was a Jubilee. The reason why the Jubilee calendar reset is because Jesus came down here, died, and was born again. This is why the Jubilee calendar reset. So if you only follow the Old Testament, your Jubilee is going to be wrong, because the book of Jubilees does not include Jesus. Jesus reset the Jubilee calendar. Now, when does the Jubilee calendar reset? We know that there are records. The records are with the Catholic Church. They put themselves in charge, okay? So we know, because The Catholic Church has jubilees. I'm not even going to get into all that right now. That's got to be a separate video. But the Catholic Church has jubilees. The Pope announces the jubilees. Guess when the last jubilee was announced? 2025 is a jubilee year. Now, we are, like I said, we're still in 2024 energy. 2025 doesn't really start like officially until the day after the Pisces full moon. So that'll be sometime in the fall. I'm gonna do a separate video on this. But the Jubilee haven't even started. But the Pope declared a Jubilee year for 2025. This is why he was unable to, just like the Queen gave herself a platinum Jubilee with our platinum plan, the Pope tried to give himself a Jubilee year with our Jubilee plan. You can't do that. So that's why he was unable to be here for the start of the Jubilee. Okay? So that's why he's gone. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't give yourself a Jubilee with my Jubilee, without what belongs to us. You can't make the holy things profane, because if you do, you're going to be taken out. So we have proof that when they try to make the holy things profane, they get taken out. So just keep that in mind. So let's talk about all right, let's go over here. We're going to talk about this parable. We're going to look at a couple of the words. I have one word pulled up, but I want to look at something else. We're going to go straight to... Oh, wait, let me read the notes. So, let me go back. All right, so this is 15 and 11. All right. The son's request for his portion of goods or essence indicates man receiving his free will and his rational mind from God. As Adam did in Eden, the younger son uses these possessions to rebel against his father. The far country represents life in exile from God. This is really interesting how they put that, because it was Adam that messed up, not Eve. Eve was allowed to eat from the tree. It was Adam who couldn't eat from the tree. Okay? We all know that. It says feeding the swine could rightly be called Jewish Skid Row. He could not sink much lower. Came to himself, a person immersed in sin is living outside his true self. Romans 7:17-20. The prodigal realizes his hopeless condition. The bread symbolizes Christ, who is known through the scriptures and the Eucharist. Though it was considered unseemly in Jewish culture for an old man to run, the father did not passively stand by waiting for his son to return. He ran to him. This self-humiliation for the sake of the lost indicates the way in which our Father, through Christ's sacrifice, actively seeks those who stray. Listen, as soon as the Father sees us turning around 2022, he was like, all right, y'all, wrap this little experiment y'all got up. They coming back. All we had to do was attempt to turn back. All we had to do, but we had to attempt. We had to try to turn to the ways of the righteous. They were all different, but they were the ways of the righteous. They wanted us to be under control. We weren't all coming back the same path, but we were all coming back into the righteousness. The significance of the robe is righteousness granted by baptism. The signet ring is family identity, and the sandals refer to walking according to the gospel. All right. So let's look at that word in verse 20. I'm going to read verse 20. And rising, he came toward the father of himself, still of him distantly, of having from, he saw him, the father of him, and he was internally deeply moved, and coursing, he fell upon into the neck of him, and he elaborately showed love to him. I added the two. All right, so let's look at that word. He was internally deeply moved. All right, that one pulled up. All right. I'm going to have to click on it in order to, I want to have the explanation. All right. This word is third person single from the verb marked similar below. Its tense is aorist, which indicates the mere fact of the action with deliberate silence, but when the action takes place or how long it lasts, its voice passes deponent, which indicates that even though the form is passive, the subject still performs the action instead of receives it. And its mood is indicative, which describes a situation that actually is, as opposed to a situation that might be, is wished for, or commanded to be. Listen, this is not what might be, what could be. No. This is what is. This is what is. We are seeking our Father. We are seeking the Creator. It's not if we would, if we could, if we should. No, we are. So this is, and He is actively seeking us. We returning back, but the Creator was literally actively seeking us anyway. That's what that first part in the book of Jubilee said. We're going to see that He was always there with us. No matter what these people said, everything they ruined, everything they changed, we're going to see that He was always there for us. Okay? The noun cholia broadly refers to the lower part of a mammal's main body. It comes from the noun cholios, meaning hollow, which was used as broadly as to refer to the hold of a ship, a valley, or a natural harbor, with the connotation of being empty. It ultimately stems from the same Proto-Indo-European root that gave the English words whole and hollow and hell. That indicates that our word mostly emphasizes the thorax as a big hollow vessel. The regular word for harbor, limen, whereas limos means hunger or famine. Our noun cholia denotes the entire thorax, including the lungs, but mostly emphasizes the belly. Okay? Here we go. It also demonstrates that to the Greeks, physical pregnancy was a physical manifestation of a kind of process that all humans are intimately familiar with. That word was specifically reserved for womb, from mother, mitter, and that word is only used twice in the New Testament. Our noun cholia is used 23 times, and 12 times is used to refer to a pregnant belly. That is when it's hollow or utilized. The noun gaster refers to digestive tract, specifically to the stomach, but emphasizes the desire for filling it with food. It stems from the unused verb growl, to eat, which itself is unclear pedigree, but perhaps related to grastes or grass, thus rather means graze. Greek word for gluttony and belly slave are all or people who eat too much, all derived from this noun. As with cholia, our noun gaster is frequently deployed to describe one's womb, which in turn emphasizes the desire of a woman for a child and thus for a husband. Our noun is used 9 times, and 8 times refers to a pregnant stomach. Okay, so basically, this is not talking about a son returning to his father. It's the mother who saw. Listen, you can't read this any other way. That word deeply move within your womb. The mother. Okay, now the mother and the father are one, so they can say it's the father. It doesn't matter. The mother, the feminine energy, is the one who recognized the son coming up the road and killed the fattened calf and called the. Because why? The woman is the one who calls the Sabbaths. Men don't call the Sabbaths. The women call the Sabbaths. That's what this story is telling me, because it is the woman talking to the older son, i.e. the older daughter, saying he was dead and now he's back. A man wouldn't say that about his son. My son died and now he's alive. No, he would say that son is dead. My son is gone. Rest in piss. That's what the father would say. The mother would say, my son, he was gone and now he's back. So, again, it is the women who call the Jubilees. It is the women who plan the Jubilees. It is the women who keep the time. I can do for you what Martin did for the people. Ran by the men, but the women keep the tempo. The women keep the tempo. The women keep the records. The women keep the charts. It's in our blood. It's in us. We are the ones who do it. Jesus clearly was telling them it's the women who do this. So that's why, who is the first one to listen? The first one to the tomb after Jesus died. They waited a whole day because of what? The Sabbath. They waited for the Sabbath to be over and then they went to see Jesus. That's the reason why they waited, because everything had to be done before the Sabbath. The women always observed the Sabbath, whether the men did or not. Didn't matter what the men were doing. The women observed the Sabbath. So it was the mother who called for the Sabbath to be changed following Jesus' death. That was because why? Jesus returned back to his mother. Big Mama. He left what? He said what to Mary? Mary, this is your son. Son, this is your mother. He ain't leave her with nothing. And he returned back to his Big Mama. And she welcomed him back and said, hey, we killing the fattened calf. It's time to celebrate. It's time to party. That's what happened. It's in the story. So let's I don't even know where you go from there. But let's start with Jesus receiving the sinners. There's another word I wanted to look up. Hold on. While we're here, it makes sense to just look it up. Make me one of thy commercial partners. Let's look at that. This word means a wage slave. I'm no longer fitting to be your son. Make me a wage slave. That's a mother would never do that to their child. A mother wouldn't, okay? So she didn't make Jesus a wagey, okay? She brought him right back to his rightful place, okay? All right. So let's talk about, all right, let me go into Mark. All right. So like I always say, this is just incredible. Like I always say. So the point is, as soon as we started going towards the mother, the father, whoever, they started coming towards us. And as soon as we were there, we were accepted. It's this jealous brother who could be Satan, the fallen angels, the fallen ones, the jealous ones, who said, not the sister, but the jealous brother, who said, hey, why are you doing this for them? We came back, didn't we? Like, nobody cares. You were always with me. The demons don't realize that they're still with the Creator. That's neither here nor there. I discussed that previously. Hell is on the inside of the sun. So they're still with the Creator. They're just on the inside, not the outside. So they can't see that they're in the sun. But they are, in fact, in the sun because hell is hot. The sun is hot. So they're on the inside of the sun. That's where hell is, okay? So let's go to these scriptures. So first, we're going to, I might not do this the way I want to. I'll tell you guys the other scriptures, but we're going to read the stories from Mark because they're all together. If I go to the other ones, it's going to be complicated. But each of these stories because remember, each of these books of the Bible is for a different group of people. I have said before, the book of Mark is for the quote unquote Hebrews, the black ones, because Mark speaks in our language. He speaks in parties and he speaks in food. He is always he is recalling details of the parties that are important. I was going to go into all of these maybe at a different time, but we need to focus in on just these 4 principles, okay? So Jesus receives the sinners. This is Mark 2:13 through 17. So Levi, specifically Levi, okay? That's why this version is important. Chapter 2, verse 13 of Mark. Then he went out again by sea, and all the multitude came to him, and he taught them. As he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting on the tax office, and he said to him, "Follow me." So he arose and followed him. Now it happened, as he was dining in Levi's house, that many tax collectors and sinners also sat together with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many, and they followed him. And when the scribes and Pharisees saw him eating with the tax collectors and sinners, they said to his disciples, "How is it that he eats and drinks with tax collectors and sinners?" When Jesus heard it, he said to them, "Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I did not come to call the righteous, but the sinners to repentance." If you're already healthy, you don't need a doctor. Now, were the Pharisees and the Sadducees healthy? No. But they thought they were. So what do they need a doctor for? They don't need a doctor because they're already, everything's hunky-dory. What do you need a doctor for? Jesus said, "I didn't come to deal with y'all. I came to deal with the ones who were sick. Y'all not sick, right? So we good. What you need me for?" That's exactly what Jesus was saying. Now, the note here, I'm going to read it because it's from Matthew 9. The note is really important here. All right. Matthew is also named Levi. Roman overlords assigned specific areas to Jewish tax collectors who were free to collect extra revenues for their own profit. Their collaboration with the occupying Romans, their fraud, and their corruption caused other Jews to hate them and consider them unclean. Jesus, dining with them and accepting a tax collector as a disciple, offends the Pharisees. Yet Christ's offense is simple. He goes where there is the need of the physician is the greatest. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. It's not a rejection of sacrifice per se, but it shows that mercy is a higher priority. There's no reason we should be suffering. Mercy is a higher priority than whatever they call my uncleanness. So we're out here begging for mercy, and the Creator is trying to give us mercy, but these Pharisees and Sadducees say that we're not worth mercy because, we use crystals, we burn candles, we're not pretending to do magic in the darkness, we're I'm going to an Orthodox church, I'm not following the Sabbath as y'all can. I don't let my enemies count my feast days. Okay, so I will never be worthy according to the Pharisees and Sadducees. But what did I say before? I'm holy because my Lord is holy. I'm sanctified because he sanctified me. I don't need them. I didn't ask them to make me holy, and I sure didn't ask them to sanctify me. So what do I need you for? Actually, you're not doing anything, so you need to leave me alone. Okay? Next one. Jesus transcends the fast or the Sabbath. No, Jesus transcends the fast. This is Mark 2:18. Okay, this is the next one. All right. Mark 2:18 through 22. The disciples of John and of the Pharisees were fasting, and they came and said to him, "Why do the disciples of John and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "Can the friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. But the days will come where the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and they will fast in those days. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, or else the new piece pulls away from the old, and the tear is made worse. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine bursts the wineskins, and the wine is spilled, and the wineskins are ruined. But the new wine must be poured into new wineskins." This is 18. All right, let's look at the note. All right. All right. The Jews typically fasted twice a week, on Monday and Thursday. In addition, public fasts were regularly observed on occasion, proclaimed, especially on the Day of Atonement and in times of mourning. But the Jews saw the day of the Messiah as a wedding feast, a time of joy and gladness. Jesus here proclaims that day, declaring himself to be the Messiah bridegroom. For Christians, fasting is not gloomy but desirable, a bright sadness, or by fasting they gain self-control and prepare themselves for the wedding feast. Okay? So you have to fast. But guess what? Jesus said what? When he's here, are you supposed to be fasting? Or are you supposed to be feasting? Now, we know that Jesus on the Christian calendar is here until Ascension, right? Ascension starts on May the 29th. We should be feasting on that day. So we started to feast a little bit early to correlate with this whole season, which will cover Ascension and will cover there's another one in June. I don't have my calendar open in June, but so again, you don't fast when Jesus is with you. And sometimes when Jesus being the moon, right? So the moon is not the moon is here with us. So this is the time that we would feast. And when the moon is getting ready to go away, that's why our fast starts in August. That's when the days are going back down. The moon is beginning to increase. That's why you fast, because did I get that backwards? The moon is decreasing right now. So he's still with us. We still need a party. Then the moon will be increasing. So we need to fast to prepare for the return of the moon, when the moon will overtake the sun. Right now, the sun is getting ready to overtake the moon. So this is the last call for alcohol, last little bit of time to party, because when that sun is out, when the Holy Spirit is here, you got to work. Work. But when the moon is getting ready to take over, the time is switching, then you got to fast. You got to prepare for the return of the lunar energy. This is how the cycle goes. All right, next one. Jesus transcends the Sabbath. This is Mark 2:23 through chapter 3, verse 6. Now it happened that he went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. And as they went, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. And the Pharisees said to him, "Look, why do they do what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" But he said to them, "Have you ever read what David did when he was in need and hungry, and those with him, how he went into the house of God in the days of Abiathar the high priest, and ate the showbread, which is not lawful to eat except for priests, and also gave some to those who were with him? He said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not for man the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath." And he entered into the synagogue again, and a man was there who had a withered hand. So they watched him closely, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Step forward." Then he said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save a life or to kill?" But they kept silent. And when he had looked around them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and immediately plotted with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. Let's see. We have to see this note at Luke 6 and 7. Let's see. The hardness of their hearts, right? There's always these people with the hard hearts. Okay. Oh, let me look at this. 5 and 39. Oh, yeah, okay. All right. Second Sabbath after the first. This term was used when a Jewish feast immediately followed the normal Sabbath, for a feast was also known as a Sabbath. According to St. Ambrose, the term Second Sabbath serves as an image of the new covenant and the eternal resurrection. The first Sabbath indicates the law, while the second Sabbath indicates the gospel that follows it. Under the new covenant, the food which was at one time not lawful for anyone but priests to eat, is now freely given to all by the Lord of the Sabbath. David prefigured this when he gave the showbread to those with him. According to certain traditions that the scribes and Pharisees had built up around the law, healing was considered work and thus not permissible on the Sabbath. They believed they served God by zealously keeping these peripheral traditions, but this legalism made them insensitive to God's mercy. These people are insensitive to God's mercy. Now, you see what Jesus did on the Sabbath. Not only did he gather some food for himself to eat, and they ate, he also had mercy. So that's why you do the best you can. The observing is not a show thing. It's on the inside, not the outside. Now, I always mention feasts in the Orthodox Church are always fast. Like you don't have a feast in the Orthodox Church and it not be a fast. It's a fast. So that's an option, but it's whatever it takes for you in your heart to recognize that what you're reaching out to your mother and your father to return to their home, to be like the prodigal son and say, I could be a wagey in my father's house and live better than these people got me living out here. And the father will never make you a wagey, okay? You'll never be a wage slave to the father and the mother. Never. And that's what they want. They want us to agree to be wage slaves because that's we have free will. It's up to us. And they don't want us to have anything more than what they have. Who is they? These demons, these fallen ones, these people who worship these foreign gods, who can't, their gods aren't living. They're dead gods. Okay? They're dead gods. Our Savior lives. Christ is risen. Not past, not present, not is right now. He's risen right now. We don't serve a dead God hanging on a cross. Romans do that. We serve a living God who is living right now. Okay, last one. The temple is cleansed. This is important. This is Mark 11, 15 through 19. So they came to Jerusalem. Then Jesus went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the tables of money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And he would not allow anyone to carry wares to the temple. Then he taught, saying to them, Is it not written, My house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of thieves? And the scribes and the chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him. For they feared him, because all the people were astonished at his teaching. When the evening had come, he went out of the city. Then we have the fig tree. All right, let's look at the note, which is in Matthew 21. He kicked those people out. Why? Because, and without the money, they couldn't do what they needed to do. So that's what they want us to do. They want us to be wage slaves, okay? Um, 12. All right. Those who bought and sold were trading live animals to be used for sacrifices. The money changers traded Roman coins for Jewish coins, since Roman coins, which bore the image of Caesar, were considered defiling in the temple. The cleansing of the temple also points out the necessity that the church be kept free from earthly pursuits. As each person is considered a temple of God, it is also a sign that our hearts and minds must be cleansed of earthly matters. Keep the feast with the children and holding the branches in hands. Okay, well, no, that's the next example. We have to be cleansed of earthly matters. What does that mean? Does that mean we go outside, live in the middle of a field, grow a bunch of stuff? No, that means we have the money to do what is necessary. The Jews had money. The Romans had money. The scam was the money changers would trade the Roman coins for the Jewish coins in order for them to do business. That was a scam. That's like when you go to Chuck E. Cheese and you got to change your dollars for tokens. That's a scam. Just let me use dollars. But it's gambling if you use dollars, like when you go to a casino. Those are not even money changers. It's it's Chuck E. Cheese, the place for the children, that is the money changers. They are money changers. They're telling you, if you give us $20, we'll give you $20 in credits. Is it 20 credits? No, it's some other arbitrary number. It's not dollar for dollar. See, the Treasury, if you have tax credits are dollar for dollar. They're not scamming people in exchanging their money. See, this is the deeper knowledge. If you can wrap your mind around it, they're not scamming people for money. But they're doing it in other places. Other entities are doing it. They're not supposed to be doing it. Because tax credits are dollar for dollar. The problem is when you go to places and they're not dollar for dollar. So if it's dollar for dollar, 4 tokens should equal 4 quarters. That's dollar for dollar. 1 credit should be $1. That's dollar for dollar. It's not dollar for dollar. It's some arbitrary thing that they make up. Those are money changers. That's what they was doing in Temple. And you said no. Dollar for dollar is all that's worth. You can't have a different house money. I mean, they do it at casinos with chips. But the chips are still dollar for dollar. It's the Chuck E. Cheese, the kids, that is not dollar for dollar. So, destruction. I don't know. But the temple will be cleansed, which means dollar for dollar. We're supposed to be given dollar for dollar. So if I say, for my pain and suffering to reset my nervous system is $5 million, that's it. Dollar for dollar. If I say I need 7 Jubilee cycles as a payment for pain and suffering, 7 Jubilee cycles. That's what I need. But again, you got to understand, it has to be dollar for dollar. They can't give you a half a dollar when you're supposed to be $1. Jesus will kick them out of the temple. And they're trying not to be kicked out of the temple, which is this earth, by allowing these foolishness to continue, which is why you have to stand up and say, no, not allowed, not appropriate. I'm not accepting that. And when you say that, problem is solved. But it's not going to be solved until you say it's unacceptable. Enough of us have to say it. And that's what we're doing back to the Feast for Abundance. It's time for our Jubilee. We have to prepare. We're not in the 7th year yet. I had to do another video on that. But this is a Jubilee year. The Pope called the Jubilee year. So guess what? The Pope that calls himself the Vicar of Christ called the Jubilee year, which means when 2025 starts, right after our Feast of Sukkot, our Jubilee year is going to start because the Pope called it. We're going to finish our regular schedule because that's required. But right after our regular schedule is over, our feast year has to begin. That's what they did. So that means I need now to be able to prepare for my feast year for next year. It's got to be done. And because they called it out of the timeline with the Creator, there's nothing we can do. They should have stayed in alignment. Now, we're also going to celebrate the ones in alignment. But again, the greatest one is the one that begins on the first day. I mean, the 7th day or the first day, however you want to calculate it. This is the most important feast. And that's why we got to start by keeping these feasts. These Jubilee days. We have a Jubilee day every week. Okay? Then, following the Feast of Sukkot, we got a Jubilee 6 months. Then we got a Jubilee year because the Pope called the year as a Jubilee. So we have to prepare. But right now we're saying no. Settle the tab. It's dollar for dollar. The tab needs to be settled now. Not months from now, weeks from now. Now the tab, we have to prepare for whatever it is we're supposed to do on this Jubilee year. And we didn't call the Jubilee year. I didn't call it. The Pope called it. So it must be honored and respected. This is what happens when you call yourself the vicar of Christ. Your words have meaning, and they thought it would have meaning for them, but then not for us. And it don't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. So I don't have no words for you, for y'all about this. Our Jubilee feast starts tomorrow. Our I call it our pre-Jubilee feast because this is a little mini Jubilee as we prepare for our big Jubilee. This is the start of our observational year for observing the feast and the fast. And it's time to get started. So shalom. Of course, as you see on the screen, you can get the bundle. Just email me if you want it or whatever. We about to celebrate. That's it. That's all. It's time for us to be draw nearer and dearer to our Savior and to our Father and his household. So shalom, peace, and blessings, and we'll see you in the next video.